water pick up little moisture and the coastal regions have low temperatures and very low rainfall, the main precipitation being in the form of fog and dew. The range of temperatures on a daily and annual coastal deserts are mostly found on the western edges of continental land masses in regions. Coastal deserts are mostly found on the western edges of continental land masses in regions where cold currents approach the land or cold water upwellings rise from the ocean depths. The cool winds crossing this water pick up little moisture and the coastal regions have low temperatures and very low rainfall, the main precipitation being in the form of fog and dew. The range of temperatures on a daily and annual scale is relatively low, being 11 degrees Celsius, 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and 5 degrees Celsius, 9 degrees Fahrenheit, respectively in the Atacama Desert. Deserts of this type are often long and narrow and bounded to the east by mountain ranges. They occur in Namibia, Chile, Southern California and Baja California. Other coastal deserts influenced by cold currents are found in Western Australia, the Arabian Peninsula and Horn of Africa, and the western fringes of the Sahara. 31. In 1961, Peveril makes divided desert regions on Earth into three categories according to the amount of precipitation they received. In this now widely accepted system, extremely arid lands have at least 12 consecutive months without precipitation. Arid lands have less than 250 millimeters, 9.8 in, of annual precipitation, and semi-arid lands have a mean annual precipitation of between 250 and 500 millimeters, 9.8 and 19.7 in. Both extremely arid and arid lands are considered to be deserts, while semi-arid lands are generally referred to as steppes when they are grasslands. 6. Desert behind mountains because of the rain-shadow effect. The Agastya Malai Hills cut off Tirunelveli in India from the monsoons, creating a rain-shadow region. Deserts are also classified, according to their geographical location and dominant weather pattern, as trade wind, mid-latitude, rain-shadow, coastal, monsoon, or polar deserts. 35. Trade wind deserts occur either side of the horse latitudes at 30 degrees to 35 degrees north and south. These belts are associated with the subtropical anticyclone, the large-scale descent of dry air moving from high altitudes toward the poles. The Sahara Desert is of this type. 36. Mid-latitude deserts occur between 30 degrees and 50 degrees north and south. They are mostly in areas remote from the sea where most of the moisture has already precipitated from the prevailing winds. They include the Tenga and Sonoran deserts. 35. Monsoon deserts are similar. They occur in regions where large temperature differences occur between sea and land. Moist warm air rises over the land, deposits its water content and circulates back to sea. Further inland, areas receive very little precipitation. The Thar Desert near the India/Pakistan border is of this type. 35. In some parts of the world, deserts are created by a rain-shadow effect. Orographic lift occurs as air masses rise to pass over high ground. In the process they cool and lose much of their moisture by precipitation on the windward slope of the mountain range. When they descend on the leeward side, they warm and their capacity to hold moisture increases, so an area with relatively little precipitation occurs. 37. The Taklamakan Desert is an example, lying in the rain shadow of the Himalayas and receiving less than 38 millimeters, 1.5 in, precipitation annually. 38. Other areas are arid by virtue of being a very long way from the nearest available sources of moisture. 39. Montane deserts are arid places with a very high altitude. The most prominent example is found north of the Himalayas, in the Kunlun Mountains and the Tibetan Plateau. Many locations within this category have elevations exceeding 3,000 m, 9,800 feet, and the thermal regime can be hemiboreal. These places owe their profound aridity. The average annual precipitation is often less than 40 millimeters or 1.5 in, to being very far from nearest available sources of moisture and are often in the lee of mountain ranges. Montane deserts are normally cold, or may be scorchingly hot by day and very cold by night, as is true of the northeastern slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro. 40. Polar deserts such as McMurdo dry valleys remain ice-free because of the dry katabatic winds that flow downhill from the surrounding mountains. 41. Former desert areas presently in non-arid environments, such as the sand hills in Nebraska, are known as paleodeserts. 35. In the Köppen climate classification system. Deserts are classed as BWH, hot desert, or BWK, temperate desert. In the Thornthwaite climate classification system, deserts would be classified as arid megathermal climates. 42. 43. Polar desert. Polar deserts are a type of cold desert. While they do not lack water, having a persistent cover of snow and ice, this is merely due to marginal evaporation rates and low precipitation. The McMurdo dry valleys of Antarctica, which lack water, whether rain, ice, or snow, much like a non-polar desert, and even have such desert features as hypersaline lakes and intermittent streams that resemble, except for being frozen at their surfaces, hot or cold deserts for extreme aridity and lack of precipitation of any kind. Extreme winds and not seasonal heat desiccate these nearly lifeless terrains. Biological desert. An animation of a year in organism density on Earth. The South Pacific Gyre is an example of a so-called oceanic desert, visibly low, purple, in organism density. Polar deserts are a visible inconsistent white and arid deserts inconsistent brown, with tundras oscillating between white and brown. The concept of biological desert redefines the concept of desert without the characteristic of aridity, not lacking water, but instead lacking life. Such places can be so-called ocean deserts, which are mostly at the centers of gyres, but also hypoxic or anoxic water such as dead zones. 44, 45, 46. Morphology. Weathering processes. Granite rock with weathered exfoliation. Enchanted Rock State Natural Area, Texas. Exfoliation of weathering rocks in Texas. U.S. deserts usually have a large diurnal and seasonal temperature range, with high daytime temperatures falling sharply at night. The diurnal range may be as much as 20 to 30 degrees Celsius, 36 to 54 degrees Fahrenheit, and the rock surface experiences even greater temperature differentials. 47. During the day the sky is usually clear and most of the sun's radiation reaches the ground, but as soon as the sun sets, the desert cools quickly by radiating heat into space. In hot deserts, the temperature during daytime can exceed 45 degrees Celsius, 113 degrees Fahrenheit, in summer and plunge below freezing point at night during winter. 48. Multicolor grains of sand in a centimeter sample. 1 square centimeter, 0.16 square in, of windblown sand from the Gobi Desert. Such large temperature variations have a destructive effect on the opposed rocky surfaces. Their repeated fluctuations put a strain on exposed rock and the flanks of mountains crack and shatter. Fragmented strata slide down into the valleys where they continue to break into pieces due to the relentless sun by day and chill by night. Successive strata are exposed to further weathering. The relief of the internal pressure that has built up in rocks that have been underground for eons can cause them to shatter. 49. Exfoliation also occurs when the outer surfaces of rock split off in flat flakes. This is believed to be caused by the stresses put on rock by repeated thermal expansions and contractions which induces fracturing parallel to the original surface. 47. Chemical weathering processes probably play a more important role in deserts than was previously thought. The necessary moisture may be present in the form of dew or mist. Groundwater may be drawn to the surface by evaporation, and the formation of salt crystals may dislodge rock particles as sand or disintegrate rocks by exfoliation. Shallow caves are sometimes formed at the base of cliffs by this means. 47. As the desert mountains decay, large areas of shattered rock and rubble occur. The process continues and end products are either dust or sand. Dust is formed from solidified clay or volcanic deposits, whereas sand results from the fragmentation of harder granites, limestone and sandstone. 50. There is a certain critical size, about 0.5 millimeters, below which further temperature-induced weathering of rocks does not occur, and this provides a minimum size for sand grains. 51. As the mountains are eroded, more and more sand is created. At high wind speeds, sand grains are picked up off the surface and blown along, a process known as saltation. The whirling airborne grains act as a sand-blasting mechanism which grinds away solid objects in its path as the kinetic energy of the wind is transferred to the ground. 52. The sand eventually ends up deposited in level areas known as sand fields or sand seas, or piled up in dunes. 53. Features. See caption. Aerial view of Mark Schraman. An erosion cirque of a type unique to the Negev. Many people think of deserts as consisting of extensive areas of billowing sand dunes because that is the way they are often depicted on TV and in films. 54. But deserts do not always look like this. 55. Across the world, around 20% of desert is sand, varying from only 2% in North America to 30% in Australia and over 45% in Central Asia. 19. Where sand does occur, it is usually in large quantities in the form of sand sheets or extensive areas of dunes. 19. A sand sheet is a near-level, firm expanse of partially consolidated particles in a layer that varies from a few centimeters to a few meters thick. The structure of the sheet consists of thin horizontal layers of coarse silt and very fine tomodium grain sand, separated by layers of coarse sand and pea gravel which are a single grain thick. These larger particles anchor the other particles in place and may also be packed together on the surface so as to form a miniature desert pavement. 56. Small ripples form on the sand sheet when the wind exceeds 24 km forward/h, 15 miles per hour. They form perpendicular to the wind direction and gradually move across the surface as the wind continues to blow. The distance between their crests corresponds to the average length of jumps made by particles during saltation. The ripples are ephemeral and a change in wind direction causes them to organize. 57. Sand dunes are accumulations of wind-blown sand piled up in mounds or ridges. They form downwind of copious sources of dry, loose sand and occur when topographic and climatic conditions cause airborne particles to settle. As the wind blows, saltation and creep take place on the windward side of the dune and individual grains of sand move uphill. When they reach the crest, they cascade down the far side. Hip wind slope typically has a gradient of 10 degrees to 20 degrees while the lee slope is around 32 degrees, the angle at which loose dry sand will slip. As this wind-induced movement of sand grains takes place, the dune moves slowly across the surface of the ground. 58. Dunes are sometimes solitary, but they are more often grouped together in dune fields. When these are extensive, they are known as sand seas or ergs. 59. The shape of the dune depends on the characteristics of the prevailing wind. Barken dunes are produced by strong winds blowing across a level surface and are crescent-shaped with the concave side away from the wind. When there are two directions from which winds regularly blow, a series of long, linear dunes. Diagram showing movement of sand dune in relation to wind direction.